Good day to everyone. We have here the Unit 3. This is only a past reminder o paalala lang sa ating mga past lesson that talks about newly industrializing countries and less developed countries. The vast majority of countries in the world had neither liberal, democratic, nor communist regimes. Political scientists often categorize them as less developed countries, or LDCs. Formerly, they were known as third world countries, but since Cold War ended in 1990s, the term is obsolete or nababago na yung tawag dito. We have here the two categories. Some countries, mostly in Asia and parts of Latin America, have experienced both economic growth and democratization. As a result, they now exhibit many characteristics of advanced democracies. So in this book, we examine the difference between newly industrializing and less developed countries like Mexico. So later, together with my group mates, we will tackle about the Mexico. Economic Development, GDP, o Gross National Product. Ito ay nagbibigay sa atin ng impormasyon about sa status ng ating ekonomiya. Makikita natin dito na economic development is a measured by gross national product o GNP. It gives us limited amount of information about the economic or human condition of the living in an economy. Purchasing Power Parity or PPP is a statistical tool that estimates the buying power of income across different countries. One way to examine the economic development is by examining the different sectors of the economy. We have three different sectors, which is the primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. Primary sectors or the agriculture is the part of economy that grows raw materials from the natural environment. The second is the industry or secondary sector transforms raw materials into manufactured goods. These sectors grows as societies industrialize. Lastly is the tertiary sector, which is the services. It is a part of the economy that involves services rather than goods. Next is the theories of economic development. So paalala lang po, it is a short review to our past lessons. So alam na po natin tong mga ito kasi na-discuss naman na po natin sa ating nakaraan na lesson. Two theories have emerged to explain why low developed countries or LDCs are experiencing a lack of economic development and what is in store for the future. According to the westernization or modernization model, the biggest obstacle for LDCs is a tradition because holding on to values and beliefs often hinder progress. Dependency theory is an outgrowth of Marxism, which emphasizes the exploitation of one social class by another. Problems cannot be solved by westernization must be addressed by establishing independence. Many LDCs today have mixed economies with some elements of capitalism and some of socialism. Economic policies and less developed countries. Two distinct types of economic policies have been applied throughout the less developed world in an effort to jumpstart their economies. The important substitution policy is based on the belief that poorer countries must create more positive conditions for the development of local industries. The governments must restrict imports by setting quotas or imposing heavy taxes. Second is export-oriented industrialization have been used by the so-called Asian tigers. This refers to Hong Kong, South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore. Since the 1960s, Asian countries have prospered from this strategy with automobiles and electronics in their trade with the United States. So, makikita po natin dito na, na mayagpag talaga yung mga bansang ito na tinatawag nilang Asian Tigers. Political development. A state that progress from procedural democracy to substantive democracy through democratic consolidation is said to experience political development. A state that progressed from procedural democracy to substantive democracy through democratic consolidation is said to experience political liberalization. Political liberalization, it is a removal of restriction in exchange of um, higher involvement of different private organizations. Most countries that have high PPPs and developed tertiary sectors liberal are also liberal democracies. Many developing nations may be categorized as hybrid regimes, which have some characteristic of democracy, but many ways are still authoritarian. Hybrid regimes, ito yung mixed type of political system like authoritarian to democratic or vice versa. AP Comparative Government and Politics course refers to Nigeria, Somalia, and Iran. Nigeria illustrates the perils of new democracies, especially in countries with strong military traditions. Nigeria suffers from economic stagnation, regional rebellions, and government corruption. Mexico was declared by some observers to be a poster child for westernization, only to have its economy come crashing down. So we have here the government and politics of Mexico. So let's start about Mexico. The Mexican miracle. Described as rapidly increasing GNP in an orderly transition from authoritarian to a democratic government. So from authoritarian daw, naging democratic government. Then the economy soared after oil prices plummeted in early 1980s. In 2000, under close scrutiny by Western democracies, Mexico held an apparently honest competitive presidential election. We have the sovereignty, authority, and power. Despite its uncertain path, Mexico may be seen as representative of category of newly industrializing countries. Its purchasing power parity of 17,900 US dollar is very high, and about 62% of its workers are employed in the service sector. Politics are full of apparent contradictions that make politics some puzzling but always interesting and dynamic. In general, Mexicans consider their government and its power legitimate. An important source of legitimacy is the Revolution of 1910 to 1911. The revolution was legitimized by the information of the Institutional Revolutionary Party or the PRI in 1929. Today, some characteristics carry through from one era to the next. We have here the historical traditions. Authoritarianism. Mexico has a long tradition of authoritarian rule dating back to pre-Columbian times. Populism. The Zapatista movement is a reflection of this historical tradition, which is particularly strong in the southern part of the country. Power plays division within the elite. Current party leaders are often at odds, as displayed during the election crisis of 2006, politicos versus technicos. Instability and legitimacy issues. Mexico's political history is full of chaos, conflict, bloodshed, and violent resolution to political disagreement. The history is marked as chaos, conflict, and violence because in 1994, Luis Donaldo, a presidential candidate, was assassinated. Political culture. Importante sa kanila ang kanilang relihiyon because Catholic Church actively participated in politics and priests were often leaders of populist movements. A large percentage of Mexicans are devout Catholics and their beliefs strongly influence political values and actions. Patron clientelism. The system of cliques based on personal connections and charismatic leadership has served as the glue that held an agrarian Mexico together. Democratization and industrialization have out pressure on this system, and it is questionable as to whether or not modern Mexico can continue to rely on patron clientelism. Economic dependency. Mexico has struggled to gain more economic independence on the United States. Economically, Mexico is described as developing a country while politically it is considered as transitional democracy. Mexico won independence from Spain in 1821. The Mexican Revolution in 1910 gave the government legitimacy. The government is considered legitimate, but there is still instability. Geographic influence. Mexico is one of the most geographically diverse countries in the world, including high mountain, coastal plains, high plateaus, fertile valley, coastal plains, rainforest, and deserts within an area about 3 times the size of France. Mountains and deserts. Mountains separates communication, transportation. It is possible to produce agriculture, pero mahirap yung transportation. So, nakaka-impluwensya ito. Next is the varied climates. Varied climates, partly not because of terrain but also great distance from north to south. Wide variety of climates, cold and dry. Next is natural resources. Sagana sila sa oil, silver, and other minerals, pero hindi sila mostly nakikinabang. Mas nakikinabang ang United States at hindi yung mga Mexican people. Mexico is a long 2,000 miles long border with the United States with 122 million people in an urban population.